The Forbidden Temple. The alien jungle stretched endlessly under a twilight sky, its thick vines glowing faintly with bioluminescent light. Captain Ryan Carter trudged through the dense undergrowth, sweat dripping down his face. His spaceship, the Odyssey, was parked miles away, hidden from the watchful eyes of alien patrols. Ryan wasn't here for treasure or adventure. He was here because of a rumor, one he couldn't ignore. Locals had whispered about the Cradle of Eternity, an ancient temple hidden in the heart of this alien world. They claimed it held the sacred elixir, a liquid said to grant its drinker immense power, maybe even immortality. For most, the temple was just a myth. But for Ryan, who had nothing left to lose, it was worth the risk. As he pushed aside a curtain of oversized leaves, the temple came into view. Its towering spires were covered in alien carvings, glowing faintly in the dim light. Vines wrapped around its structure like claws, as if the jungle itself was trying to keep it hidden. The air around it was unnaturally still, and Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Just a myth, huh? He muttered to himself, gripping his plasma pistol tighter. The entrance to the temple was a wide archway, guarded by statues of alien beings with elongated heads and sharp, insect-like limbs. Their hollow eyes seemed to follow him as he stepped inside. The air grew colder, carrying with it a faint hum, almost like a heartbeat. The first chamber was vast and empty, save for a series of alien symbols etched into the walls. Ryan pulled out a small scanner from his utility belt, hoping to translate them. The device buzzed and displayed a rough translation. Only the worthy shall drink. Only the chosen shall survive. Ryan frowned. Well, that's not ominous at all. He pressed forward, his boots echoing against the smooth metallic floor. The deeper he went, the louder the humming grew. It wasn't long before he reached the heart of the temple. The chamber was unlike anything he had ever seen. At its center stood a pedestal, and on it rested a small vial filled with a glowing golden liquid, the sacred elixir. It pulsed with an inner light, casting long shadows across the room. Surrounding the pedestal were more alien carvings, depicting figures drinking the elixir and transforming into radiant, godlike beings. But others showed something darker, figures consumed by the elixir, their bodies dissolving into ash. Ryan hesitated. This was it, the thing he had traveled across galaxies for. But now that he was here, doubt crept into his mind. What if the elixir wasn't what he thought it was? What if it was a trap? Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the chamber. Ryan spun around, his pistol raised. From the shadows emerged a creature unlike anything he'd encountered before. It was massive, with 4 glowing eyes and a body covered in sleek black scales. It didn't charge at him. It just stared, as if deciding whether he was friend or foe. "Easy there," Ryan said, keeping his weapon trained on the creature. The beast stepped closer, its eyes flickering between him and the pedestal. It let out another low growl, but this time, it sounded more like a warning. Ryan realized the creature wasn't guarding the temple, it was guarding the elixir. He turned back to the vial, his heart pounding. If the stories were true, this could change everything. It could give him the edge he needed to survive in a galaxy that wanted him dead. But if the carvings were true, it could also destroy him. The creature growled again, louder this time. Ryan knew he had to make a choice, and fast. "All right," he muttered, holstering his pistol. "Here goes nothing." He reached out and grabbed the vial. The creature roared, but it didn't attack. Instead, it stepped back, as if acknowledging his decision. Ryan uncorked the vial and sniffed the liquid. It smelled faintly of metal and flowers, a strange, almost otherworldly scent. "Bottoms up," he said, and downed it in one gulp. The effects were immediate. A searing heat spread through his body, followed by a surge of energy so intense it brought him to his knees. His vision blurred, and he felt like his very cells were being rewritten. The chamber seemed to warp around him, the carvings glowing brighter and brighter until they were blinding. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Ryan staggered to his feet, breathing heavily. He felt different, stronger, faster. But before he could process what had happened, the creature let out a deafening roar and vanished into the shadows. The temple began to shake. Cracks spread across the walls, and chunks of stone started falling from the ceiling. Ryan sprinted for the exit, his mind racing. Whatever he had done, whatever the elixir had done to him, it had triggered something. Something big. As he burst out of the temple and into the jungle, the sky above him lit up with the glow of alien ships. They were descending rapidly, their weapons trained on him. Ryan cursed under his breath. He didn't know what the elixir had done, but he was about to find out. And the entire galaxy seemed ready to make him pay for it. Unwanted attention. The cockpit of the Odyssey was eerily quiet as Ryan Carter slouched in his pilot's chair, staring at his reflection in the darkened control panel. He felt different, not just physically, but something deeper, something he couldn't quite put into words. His veins still tingled from the effects of the sacred elixir he had consumed hours ago. His pulse, once a steady drumbeat in his chest, now felt off, like a melody out of sync with the universe. He clenched and unclenched his fists, testing the strange strength surging through him. The elixir had done something he hadn't expected. But what? He hadn't had time to figure it out before the temple collapsed, and he made his frantic escape. Now the emptiness of space stretched before him, and he thought maybe, just maybe, he'd gotten away clean. Then the proximity alarm screamed. Ryan shot up, his instincts sharper than they'd ever been. The holographic radar sprang to life, bathing the cockpit in a pale blue glow. 6 red blips surrounded his ship, closing in fast. Pirates, he muttered, flipping switches and bringing the Odyssey's systems online. But as the ships came into view on the external cams, he knew these weren't your everyday space bandits. Sleek, silver crafts, each bearing the insignia of the Zenari Confederation, a symbol of an alien empire known for its ruthless enforcement of galactic law. Not good, Ryan whispered. The comm panel crackled, and a voice filled the cabin. It was calm, cold, and unmistakably alien. Attention, human. This is Commander Zetra of the Zenari Confederation. You are ordered to power down your engines and surrender immediately. You are in possession of the sacred elixir, an artifact of immeasurable importance to our people. Resistance will be met with lethal force. Ryan's stomach twisted. The elixir wasn't just some forgotten relic. It was something much bigger. And now, it seemed, the galaxy knew he had it. He hit the comm button, trying to keep his voice steady. Commander Zetra, this is Captain Carter. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I don't know anything about your artifact. I was just. Do not insult my intelligence, Captain, Zetra interrupted. Her voice carried the weight of someone who didn't tolerate lies or mistakes. You have defiled our sacred temple and consumed what was not yours to take. Do you realize the chaos you have unleashed? Chaos. Ryan frowned. What are you talking about? Zetra didn't answer right away. When she spoke again, her tone was laced with something that sounded almost like pity. You have no idea what you've done, do you? The elixir was not meant for your kind. Its power is sacred, its purpose divine. By drinking it, you have bound yourself to something far beyond your comprehension. Before Ryan could respond, the ship jolted violently. A bright beam of energy grazed the hull, leaving a smoking scar on its surface. Last warning, human, Zetra said. Surrender, or we will take you by force. Ryan gritted his teeth. Whatever he had gotten himself into, there was no way he was surrendering now. He slammed the controls, igniting the engines. The Odyssey roared to life, shooting forward as the Zenari ships gave chase. You want me? Come and get me, he muttered, weaving through the debris of a shattered asteroid field. The Zenari were relentless, firing precision shots that Ryan barely dodged. His enhanced reflexes kicked in, his hands moving faster than his thoughts as he outmaneuvered his pursuers. But as he spun through a narrow gap between two massive asteroids, a blinding flash filled the cockpit. One of the Zenari ships had cut him off, its weapons charged and ready. "End of the line, Captain Carter," Zetra's voice boomed. "Surrender now, or..." Suddenly, the comms crackled again. But this time, it wasn't Zetra. A new voice, softer but no less commanding, spoke directly into Ryan's mind. "Don't let them take you. They don't understand. You must survive." Ryan froze. The voice wasn't coming from the ship's systems. It was coming from inside his head. "Who the hell?" he began, but before he could finish, a surge of energy erupted from his body. The cockpit lights flickered, and the ship's controls went haywire. The Zenari ship blocking his path spun out of control, its engines sputtering as if they'd been hit by an invisible force. Ryan didn't have time to question it. He pushed the Odyssey to full throttle and blasted past the disabled craft, leaving the Zenari fleet scrambling behind him. His hands trembled as he steadied the ship, his mind racing. The voice returned, softer now, almost a whisper. "Find me, Ryan. I can help you. I can explain." "Explain what?" he muttered, but the voice was gone. As the Zenari ships faded into the distance, Ryan set a course for the nearest safe port. Whatever was happening to him, whatever the Elixir had done, it wasn't over. And judging by the voice in his head and the Confederation's relentless pursuit, this was only the beginning. The revelation. Ryan Carter sat at the corner table of a dimly lit cantina on the outskirts of Neris 5, a neutral planet known for its sprawling black markets and lack of allegiance to any galactic faction. The room buzzed with chatter, a mix of alien dialects he barely understood. His focus wasn't on the crowd, though. It was on the holographic device in his hand. The voice that had spoken in his mind during the chase. It hadn't returned, but its cryptic words still lingered. "Find me. I can help you." He couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching him. As he took a sip from his drink, a shadow fell across his table. Ryan's hand instinctively moved to his blaster, but when he looked up, he saw a tall, slender alien woman with iridescent skin and piercing golden eyes. She wore a long, flowing cloak adorned with symbols that Ryan vaguely recognized from the temple carvings. "Captain Carter," she said, her voice smooth and steady, "you've caused quite a stir." Ryan leaned back in his chair, feigning calm. "If you're here to collect a bounty, you're going to have to get in line." The woman smirked and slid into the sea across from him. "I'm not here for the bounty. I'm here to warn you. The Zenari Confederation won't stop until they have you, and the Elixir's power." Ryan narrowed his eyes. "And who are you supposed to be?" "My name is Teva," she replied. "I'm one of the 100. Ryan blinked. "The 100 what?" "The 100 lives now tied to yours," she said, her tone growing serious. "When you drank the elixir, it didn't just change you. It created a connection, one that links you to 100 women across the galaxy. We are its chosen bearers, the ones meant to safeguard our species' future. But by drinking it, you've disrupted the balance." Ryan stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "Wait, let me get this straight. You're saying that... What? I'm connected to 100 alien women. How does that even make sense?" Teva sighed. "The elixir isn't just a drink. It's a living force, one that carries the essence of life itself. When you consumed it, you absorbed its power. But that power wasn't meant for you. It was meant for us. Now, our lives depend on you." Ryan shook his head. "This is insane. I didn't ask for any of this. And yet here you are," Teva said, leaning forward. "Do you feel it, Captain? The pull, the whispers in your mind. That's the bond. It's why you survived drinking the elixir when so many others would have perished. But it comes at a cost." Ryan swallowed hard. He had felt it. The strange voice, the surge of energy, the sense that he was being pulled in a dozen different directions at once. He'd written it off as a side effect of the elixir. Now, it seemed, it was something far more complicated. "So, what happens now?" he asked. Teva hesitated. The Zenari believe the elixir's power should remain within our species. They think you're a threat to our survival, that your very existence endangers the future of the 100. But there's more they're not telling you. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Of course there is. Why don't you enlighten me?" Teva glanced around the cantina, her golden eyes scanning the room for potential eavesdroppers. When she was satisfied, she leaned in closer and lowered her voice. "The children." "What children?" Ryan asked, his stomach sinking. "The elixir doesn't just create a bond," she said. "It creates life. Each of the 100 women is now carrying a part of your essence. If the bond is severed, if you die, they die, too. And the children with them." Ryan froze, his breath catching in his throat. "You're telling me I've somehow fathered 100 kids, without even knowing it?" Teva nodded, her expression grave. "And they're no ordinary children. They're hybrids, combining the best traits of both our species. If they survive, they could unify the galaxy, or tear it apart." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. He'd gone from a lone wanderer with nothing to lose to the unwilling linchpin of an intergalactic prophecy. "Great. So now I'm a fugitive, a father, and some kind of galactic freak show. Anything else I should know?" Teva's gaze hardened. "Yes. The Zenari aren't the only ones after you. There are others who would use the children's power for their own gain. You've become the most valuable and the most dangerous person in the galaxy. If you want to survive, you'll need allies, and you'll need to learn how to control the bond." Ryan leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning. "Control it? I don't even know what it is, let alone how to control it." Teva stood, pulling her cloak tighter around her shoulders. "Then you'd better learn fast, because if the Zenari catch you, they won't just kill you, they'll destroy everything and everyone you've connected to." Before Ryan could respond, the cantina's doors burst open, and a squad of Zenari soldiers stormed in, their weapons drawn. Teva's eyes widened. "We need to go. Now." Ryan didn't need to be told twice. Grabbing his blaster, he followed Teva out the back door, his pulse pounding in his ears. Whatever his future held, one thing was clear: there was no going back. Galactic chase. The black void of space was punctuated by streaks of starlight as the Odyssey hurtled through a chaotic starfield. Ryan Carter gripped the controls tightly, the hum of the engines vibrating through the cockpit. Behind him, the Zenari Confederation's fleet loomed closer, their silver crafts gleaming like hunting knives in the dark. "This is getting ridiculous," Ryan growled, slamming the throttle forward. The ship groaned in protest but obeyed, accelerating past its safe limit. His enhanced reflexes, courtesy of the elixir, allowed him to dodge incoming plasma fire with inhuman precision. "You knew this would happen," Teva said from the co-pilot's seat. She wasn't panicked. In fact, she was disturbingly calm for someone being hunted by an entire fleet. Her golden eyes tracked the movements of the pursuing ships on the holographic display. "They won't stop until they have you, or until you're dead." "Yeah, I'm getting that vibe," Ryan snapped, jerking the controls to avoid a missile. "But maybe next time, warn me before the death squad shows up." Teva didn't respond. She was focused, her hands flying across the navigation console. "Head for the nebula rift," she said. "Their sensors will struggle to track us in there." "The rift?" Ryan glanced at her. "You mean the giant death cloud that eats ships for breakfast? Great plan." "It's our only chance," Teva shot back, her calm demeanor cracking for the first time. "Unless you have a better idea." Ryan muttered something under his breath and adjusted course. The rift loomed ahead, a swirling mass of glowing gas and debris that radiated an eerie, otherworldly light. It was a notorious graveyard for ships that strayed too close, their twisted wreckage scattered across its edges. As the Odyssey entered the rift, The ship's systems immediately began to glitch. The radar flickered, the lights dimmed, and the engine sputtered. "Nice. This is going well," Ryan muttered. Teva ignored him, her attention fixed on a handheld device. "I'm boosting the ship's energy field. It should hold for a while." A warning light flared on the control panel, accompanied by a shrill alarm. The Zenari ships were entering the rift, undeterred by its dangers. Ryan's heart sank as he watched their crafts maneuver through the dense clouds with frightening precision. "They're not giving up," Ryan said. "Got any other bright ideas?" Teva hesitated, then reached into her cloak and pulled out a small silver sphere etched with glowing symbols. "This might buy us some time." Ryan eyed the device warily. "What is that?" "An EMP pulse generator," Teva explained. "It'll disable their ships temporarily, but it'll knock out the Odyssey too." Ryan stared at her. "You want to shut down our ship in the middle of this?" He gestured to the swirling chaos outside. "Are you insane? It's either that, or we let them catch us." Teva said, her tone sharp. "Your choice." Ryan exhaled sharply, his mind racing. He hated the idea, but she was right. They were out of options. "Do it." Teva activated the sphere and placed it on the console. It pulsed once, twice, and then released a blinding flash of light. The ship's systems went dead, plunging them into silence. Through the viewport, Ryan saw the pursuing Zenari crafts falter, their engines flickering and then dying as the EMP wave spread. For a moment, everything was still. Then the Odyssey shuddered, caught in the turbulent currents of the rift. Ryan gripped the controls, trying to stabilize the ship manually. "If we survive this, I'm filing a complaint." Teva smirked faintly. "You won't survive without me." Before Ryan could respond, a massive shadow passed over the ship. He looked up and froze. Through the swirling gas, a colossal alien creature emerged, a serpentine beast with glowing translucent scales and eyes that seemed to pierce through the soul. It moved with an unsettling grace, its body coiling through the rift like a living storm. "What the hell is that?" Ryan whispered. Teva's expression darkened. "A rift guardian. They're drawn to energy disruptions. The EMP must have woken it." "Fantastic," Ryan said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Anything else you forgot to mention?" The guardian let out a deafening roar, its maw glowing with charged energy. It turned its gaze toward the Odyssey, and Ryan's stomach dropped. Teva placed a hand on his arm, her voice steady despite the danger. "Don't fight it." Ryan shot her a look. "What do you mean, don't fight it?" "That thing's about to vaporize us." "The elixir," she said firmly. "It changed you. The Guardians recognize its power. If you focus, you can communicate with it." "Communicate? Are you serious right now?" Ryan demanded, panic rising in his chest. "Do you trust me?" Teva asked, her golden eyes locking onto his. Ryan hesitated for a heartbeat, then nodded. "Fine. But if we die, I'm haunting you." Closing his eyes, he tried to focus. The tingling sensation from the elixir surged through him, stronger than ever. The Guardian's roar faded, replaced by a strange melodic hum that resonated in his mind. Images flashed before him, ancient memories of the elixir, the temple, and the beings who had created it. When he opened his eyes, the Guardian was no longer attacking. It hovered before the ship, its glowing eyes fixed on him. Slowly, it turned and began to swim deeper into the rift. "It's leading us," Ryan said, his voice tinged with awe. Teva nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "You're starting to understand." As the ship followed the Guardian's path, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that his connection to the elixir was more powerful and more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. Teva's secret. The dim glow of the Odyssey's emergency lights barely illuminated the cramped interior as the ship drifted through the eerie stillness of the nebula rift. Ryan Carter leaned back in his pilot's chair, exhaustion etched across his face. The escape from the Zenari fleet and the encounter with the Rift Guardian had left him shaken, but the silence now felt almost worse. Too quiet, too calm. In the co-pilot's seat, Teva was busy with her handheld device, scrolling through a series of alien glyphs that pulsed faintly on the screen. Her golden eyes glowed faintly in the low light, their intensity unreadable. "All right," Ryan said, breaking the silence. "Time to spill. What aren't you telling me?" Teva didn't look up. "I've told you everything you need to know." "No, you haven't," Ryan snapped, his patience wearing thin. "First, you show up out of nowhere saying I'm connected to 100 alien women. Then you tell me I'm apparently responsible for some galaxy-shaking prophecy that no one bothered to warn me about. Now we've got space snakes leading us on a magical joyride. So forgive me if I think there's more you're not saying." Teva finally looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You don't understand what's at stake." "Then help me understand," Ryan shot back, his voice firm. "What aren't you telling me?" For a moment, Teva said nothing. Then she stood, her cloak swirling around her as she walked to the viewport. Beyond the glass, the swirling clouds of the rift seemed to pulse with a life of their own. "There's a reason the elixir wasn't meant for your kind," she said quietly, her voice tinged with something Ryan couldn't place. "Regret, maybe. It doesn't just create life. It amplifies it, enhances it. The children it creates, they're not ordinary. There's something far more powerful, more dangerous." Ryan frowned. "Dangerous how?" Teva turned to face him, her golden eyes locking onto his. "Because they inherit more than just your essence. They inherit your flaws, your fears, your anger, every part of you, magnified." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying the kids are like me?" "No," Teva said, shaking her head. "They're more than you. Faster, smarter, stronger. But without guidance, without balance, they could tear this galaxy apart." Ryan leaned forward, his elbows resting on the console. "And the Zenari? What's their plan?" Teva's jaw tightened. "They believe the elixir's power should remain within our species. They see you, and the children, as an abomination, a threat to everything we've built." Ryan let out a bitter laugh. "So they kill me. The kids die, and everyone goes back to their happy little empire. Great. Real noble of them." "It's not that simple," Teva said, her voice sharp. "The children are connected to you, yes. But they're also connected to me. And to the others." Ryan blinked. "Wait. What do you mean, connected to you?" Teva hesitated, and for the first time, Ryan saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "I'm one of them, Ryan. One of the 100. And if you die, so do I." The weight of her words hit him like a freight train. "You're saying you're carrying—" "Yes," Teva interrupted, her tone firm. "I'm carrying one of the children. That's why I came to find you, to make sure you survived." Ryan's head spun. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "This just keeps getting better." Before Teva could respond, the ship's lights flickered, and the cockpit was bathed in a faint golden glow. Ryan sat up, his pulse quickening. "What now?" The glow grew brighter, coalescing into a swirling orb of light in the center of the room. It pulsed once, twice, then expanded into a humanoid figure, a translucent projection of an alien woman with elongated features and glowing, crystalline eyes. Teva's breath caught. "No, it can't be." The figure spoke, its voice echoing in a dozen harmonies. "Teva, Ryan Carter, you have trespassed into sacred territory and awakened the bond. The children's fate, and the galaxy's, now rests in your hands." Ryan stared at the projection, his mouth dry. "Who? What are you?" "I am a Seri," the figure said, "a guardian of the elixir's legacy. You have taken what was not yours, Ryan Carter, and now you bear its burden." Ryan swallowed hard. "Look, I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know what the elixir was. Can't you just? I don't know, fix it. Isari's expression softened, but her tone remained grave. The bond cannot be undone, but it can be guided. If you wish to save the children and yourselves, you must complete the rite of resonance. Teva's eyes widened. The rite? That hasn't been performed in centuries. It's impossible. It is your only hope, Isari said. But beware, the rite will test you both. It will reveal your deepest truths and your darkest fears. Fail, and the bond will break, taking all who share it with you. The projection began to fade, its light dimming. The path lies within the rift. Follow it, and you will find what you seek. And with that, Isari vanished, leaving the cockpit in silence once more. Ryan and Teva exchanged a glance, the weight of her words hanging heavy between them. Well, Ryan said, his voice hollow. No pressure or anything. The final trial. The swirling currents of the nebula rift seemed alive, shifting and pulsing like a massive, sentient organism. Ryan Carter gripped the controls of the Odyssey, his jaw clenched. His body ached from exhaustion, but his mind was sharper than ever, fueled by the elixir's lingering power. Beside him, Teva sat in silent focus, her golden eyes scanning the alien landscape ahead. Somewhere within this chaotic expanse was the entrance to the rite of resonance, the key to saving the 100 lives now tied to Ryan's own. The weight of responsibility pressed on him like a vice, but he couldn't afford to falter. Not now. You sure this is the right way? Ryan asked, his voice tense. Teva nodded without looking at him. Isari said the path lies within the rift. The energy signature ahead matches what I've read in the archives. It's ancient, powerful. Ryan grunted. Great, because the last ancient, powerful thing I touched turned my life into a galactic circus. Teva allowed herself a faint smile. You survived the elixir. You'll survive this. Ryan wasn't so sure. As they drew closer to the coordinates Isari had hinted at, the rift's energy grew more volatile. Lightning-like tendrils of plasma arced through the void, forcing Ryan to navigate carefully. The ship's systems flickered, struggling to cope with the intense interference. Then suddenly, the storm parted. Before them lay a massive structure carved into the remains of a colossal asteroid. It was unlike anything Ryan had ever seen, a seamless blend of organic and mechanical design, its surface glowing with alien runes. A single circular entrance yawned open, inviting yet foreboding. That's it, Teva said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan exhaled slowly. All right, let's get this over with. The air inside the structure was thick and heavy, carrying an electric charge that made Ryan's skin tingle. The walls pulsed faintly, as if alive, and the faint hum of energy reverberated through the corridors. Teva walked ahead, her movements deliberate, her expression unreadable. As they entered the central chamber, Ryan froze. The room was massive, its domed ceiling disappearing into shadows. At the center stood a pedestal, much like the one in the temple where he had found the elixir. But instead of a glowing vial, this pedestal held a floating crystalline sphere, its surface swirling with golden light. This is it, Teva said, her voice reverent. The heart of resonance. Ryan eyed the sphere warily. So what now? I just touch it. Teva shook her head. The rite isn't that simple. It will test us. Our strength, our resolve, and our bond. If we're not ready, it will destroy us. Ryan sighed. Of course it will. Why would anything be easy? Before Teva could respond, the chamber began to shift. The walls pulsed brighter, and the air grew colder. The sphere emitted a deep, resonant hum, and golden tendrils of light shot out from it, encircling Ryan and Teva. What's happening? Ryan asked, his voice rising. The rite has begun, Teva said, her eyes widening. Stay focused. It's going to show us. Before she could finish, the world around them dissolved. Ryan found himself standing in a vast, empty void. The air was heavy with silence, and the ground beneath his feet was a smooth, reflective surface that mirrored the stars above. In the distance, a figure emerged, familiar yet alien. It was himself. But this version of Ryan was different. His eyes glowed with the same golden light as the elixir, and his expression was cold, almost inhuman. "You think you're worthy of this power," the doppelganger said, his voice echoing. "You're just a man. A thief. A coward." Ryan clenched his fists. "I didn't ask for this." "No," the doppelganger said, stepping closer. "You didn't, but now it's yours. And you're too weak to handle it." The ground beneath Ryan cracked, and he fell, plunging into darkness. Meanwhile, Teva stood in her own trial. She was back on her homeworld, surrounded by the ruins of her people's ancient cities. The voices of her ancestors echoed in her mind, accusing her of betrayal. "You brought him here," they said. "You trusted a human with the elixir's power. Do you think he can save us? Or will he doom us all?" Teva closed her eyes, her hands trembling. "He's stronger than you think. He'll prove himself." "Will he?" The voices sneered. "Or will he abandon you when it matters most?" In the void, Ryan landed hard, the impact knocking the wind out of him. He pushed himself to his feet, his reflection flickering in the broken ground beneath him. The doppelganger appeared again, circling him like a predator. "You're running out of time," it said. "The Zenari will find you. The children will die, and it will all be your fault." Ryan gritted his teeth. "Shut up." "Face it," the doppelganger said, its voice growing louder. "You're not a hero. You're just a man pretending to be something more." Ryan's pulse quickened, but he forced himself to breathe. "Maybe I'm not a hero," he said. "Maybe I'm just a man. But I'm not giving up." The doppelganger paused, its expression softening. "Then prove it." The visions faded, and Ryan and Teva found themselves back in the chamber, the crystalline sphere glowing brighter than ever. They exchanged a glance, and for the first time, Ryan saw something in Teva's eyes he hadn't seen before: trust. Together, they reached for the sphere. The moment their hands touched it, the chamber exploded with light. A wave of energy surged through them, and Ryan felt the bond between them strengthen, solidify. He could feel the 100 lives tied to his own, their presence a constant hum in the back of his mind. When the light faded, the sphere was gone, and the chamber was silent once more. "It's done," Teva said softly. Ryan nodded, his expression grim. "Then let's finish this." The shocking result. The stars seemed closer than usual as the Odyssey glided out of the nebula rift, its battered hull glinting faintly in the light of a distant sun. Ryan Carter stood at the ship's viewport, staring into the void, his thoughts a chaotic storm. The rite of resonance had left him shaken. He wasn't the same man who had stumbled into the temple on a whim. The bond he now shared with the 100 wasn't just a connection. It was a responsibility, a weight that no one else could carry. Behind him, Teva adjusted the ship's systems, her golden eyes scanning the readouts. She hadn't said much since the rite. She didn't have to. The energy in the room was charged, as though they were both waiting for the same inevitable event. Then, it happened. A surge of warmth flooded through Ryan's body, like a current of electricity. His pulse quickened, and he gripped the edge of the console to steady himself. His vision blurred for a moment, and then he saw them, not as individuals, but as a collective presence. The 100, each one flickered through his mind like a living constellation, their emotions surging through him. Fear, awe, hope. "They're waking up," Teva said, her voice soft, but laced with urgency. Ryan turned to her, his chest tight. "What does that mean?" "It means the bond is complete," she said. "The children are ready." The ship's comm system crackled to life, and a distorted voice filled the cabin. "Captain Carter, this is Commander Zetra of the Zenari Confederation. Surrender immediately, or we will open fire." Ryan's heart sank. The Zenari fleet had found them. "Of course they have," he muttered. Can't they take a day off? Teva moved to the tactical station, her fingers flying across the controls. We can't outrun them. Not this time. Ryan cursed under his breath. So what do we do? Fight? No, Teva said, her gaze locking onto his. We show them. Ryan frowned. Show them what? The truth, she said. The power of the bond. Before he could respond, the ship shuddered as a warning alarm blared. A Zenari cruiser had fired a warning shot, its energy beam grazing the hull. Teva stepped forward, placing a hand on Ryan's shoulder. Close your eyes. Focus on the bond. Trust me. Ryan hesitated but did as she said. He closed his eyes, letting the warmth of the bond envelop him. The presence of the 100 grew stronger, their combined energy swirling around him like a storm. He felt their connection, their strength, their resolve. When he opened his eyes, the viewport was filled with light. Outside, the rift began to shimmer. Threads of golden energy snaked out from the ship, weaving intricate patterns across the void. One by one, the Zenari ships were surrounded by the same glowing tendrils, their weapons powering down as if in submission. In the center of it all, a massive figure began to take shape, a celestial being made entirely of light. Its form was neither human nor alien but something transcendent, something that defied comprehension. The presence of the 100 had coalesced into a singular entity, and its voice resonated across the galaxy. We are the children of the bond, it said, its tone calm yet commanding. We are the future. On the Zenari flagship, Commander Zetra stood frozen, her expression one of awe and disbelief. The entire fleet watched in silence as the entity turned its gaze toward them. The elixir was not stolen. The being continued. It was chosen. The bond is not a threat but a gift, a chance for unity, for survival. Do not destroy what you cannot understand. The light pulsed once, twice, and then began to fade. As the celestial being dissolved, the rift itself seemed to calm, its swirling chaos replaced by an eerie stillness. The Zenari fleet remained motionless, their weapons offline. Ryan let out a shaky breath, his heart pounding. What just happened? Teva smiled faintly. The bond spoke for itself. They've seen its power. Now it's up to them to decide what to do with it. The comm system crackled again, and this time, Zetra's voice was subdued. Captain Carter, we will withdraw. But know this, the Zenari Confederation will be watching. If you misuse this power, we will act. Ryan leaned against the console, exhaustion washing over him. Yeah, well, good luck keeping up. The fleet began to retreat, their ships vanishing into hyperspace one by one. When the last of them was gone, the cockpit fell silent. Ryan turned to Teva, a weary smile tugging at his lips. So, what now? Teva's expression softened. Now we protect the children. We teach them, and we make sure this power is used for good. Ryan nodded, the weight of the galaxy still heavy on his shoulders, but tempered by a newfound resolve. Guess I'm a dad now. A galactic dad. Teva chuckled softly. You'll get used to it. As the Odyssey set a course for a new horizon, Ryan couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, and their journey was far from over. But for the first time, he didn't feel alone. They had a bond, a family, and together, they would face whatever came next.